kid. I think it was like late 2005, or some song. And like all these Jews followed him onto MySpace, and at the time he had like a top 8, and they were all adding him as the top 8. And then once they got there, we're like, now what do we do, right? We're here. What do we do? So they started like branching out, looking for Jewish type entertainers, and you know what happened? They found me. They found me, and then people who never heard of me, never heard of me, never seen my act before, had no idea. In fact, if they saw it, they probably wouldn't like it very much because they're Jewish and they wouldn't get what the hell I was doing. Like I was in the show with a bunch of it was like a raunchy comedy troupe at the Comedy Store. It was like it was dirty, and it was. I don't think these people would like it. Whatever. I'm not going to get into that. So I'll tell you about it later though, because you have some sort of connection to it too, by the way. But what am I saying? So like all these Jews started following me, and I became famous on MySpace because I had all these Jews follow me that were like coming over from Matisyahu's, they were following him, and they followed him onto me, and they picked me up. So I'd go on these people's pages, and I would see like Matisyahu was like the number one friend, and their number 2 friend would be Rabbi Rabs. And I was blown away. These strangers had me never heard of me, didn't know who I was, and you know what I mean? And I became famous there. like I told you, I had like this following. So my first claim to fame, in order, my chronological thing, is that I was the first person dressed like me, the first frummy rabbi comedian in the world to go on a major Goyish nightclub stages in front of all non-Jewish audiences. So that's my claim to fame, as I knocked down that door. And the second one is I became like, a minor sensation on MySpace. And a lot of people treated me like a celebrity over there, and I had a following over there. And like it went from one of me being a comedian, that the following became, they were looking for a rabbi. And I had a lot of people come to me on a daily basis and asking me questions. Like, hey rabbi, what do I do? I want to convert. I'm not Jewish. What do I do? I live in Portland. And I'm like, oh, you're dead. It's like, because I had to like tell them, I have to go to move into a Jewish neighborhood and whatnot. And this is like the kind of stuff I dealt on a daily basis. And I got weird things too, like my husband, and he's fooling around on me. What should I do? And I'm like, oh my God,
Is it true that ultra-Orthodox Jews have sex through a hole in the sheet?
Is that a joke? Or
No, people ask me that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
What's the story with that?
It's true. It's true.
Really?
Yeah, and you should see the size of the hole in my sheet.
Where did people come up with this one? Because I hear that a lot.
Okay, here's my theory
people
on
know
that.
nothing about Judaism.
Here's my theory on that. You see this tallis that we wear?
Yeah.
Okay, so like it has a hole, like we wear it, comes up and it goes on the back, and it has a hole for a head to stick through, right?
Yeah.
So I think what happened was like in the old days when they used to like wash everything by hand, and then they dry it outdoors, and like on the, they hang it out to dry.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like the goyim would come by, would ride their horses by it or whatever, and they would see like that hanging there, and they would say, "Oh look, those are their sheets, honey. They're hanging their sheets out, and there's a hole in them in the middle." So they said, "Oh, that must be what happens. They have a hole in their." I don't know. That's my own theory on that.
I think the other reason you're distinctive is that you're the first man in history who's ever refused to have sex with an attractive woman who wanted to have sex with you. So
first one, I don't know. No, I'm not the
There might have been one or two before, but you're certainly in the top 10.
No.
Because I don't know any other guy who's refused to have relations with attractive women, so...
Thank you, but I don't take credit for that. I'm not...
You don't?
Nah, there's a lot of guys before me.
I don't get something. At the end of the Pasha, it says...
You like switching around.
Yeah, I do. It says, at the end of the Pasha, it says they went out and they smote these bad guys. They didn't just kill the king and his sons, they killed everybody. So why didn't they at least keep alive the hot chicks?
What did God say to do? Which group is this?
Hashem said to Moses, "Do not fear him."
Wait, which group is this?
So Israel settled in the land of the Amorite. Moses went to spy out Jazer, and they conquered its suburbs, kind of like Van Nuys. It's Van Nuys.
Yeah.
And he drove away the Amorite that was there. They turned and ascended by the way of Bashan. Og, the king of Bashan, went out against them, he and his entire people, to do battle. And Hashem said to Moses, "Do not fear him, for into your hand have I given him, his entire people and his land. You shall do to him as you did to Sihon, king of the Amorite, who dwells in Heshbon." So they smote the king, they killed all his sons, and they killed all his people until there was no survivor left of him. they took possession of his land. Why didn't they keep the hot chicks alive?
What's the commandment, though?
It's the very end of the Torah portion.
No, but what I'm saying, what's the commandment?
God said, kill them. Kill them all.
That's the answer.
It just is. Why? It's like Howard Stern had the same problem with Columbine, when these two kids went around killing everyone at Columbine. Howard Stern said, "Why didn't he at least have sex with the girls first before he killed them?" So, like, it's just like all these. I'm sure there are a lot of good-looking women. I mean, Bashan was famous for its good-looking women. I mean, they were on the covers of Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, well, God said kill them. Because I thought you were going to talk about, like, you know, with the Midianite women, which we're going to read about.
That's another.
One.
But this here,
right.
I mean, just committing genocide and not keeping the hot chicks and the little babies.
So there's your answer. You said that I'm the first one to turn down hot chicks, right? But
okay, I guess
it runs in the blood. It runs in the blood. It runs in the blood. That's what our ancestors did. I would have a hard time killing a hot-looking chick. I would have a hard time.
What about an adorable little baby? Would that be easy or hard for you?
Depends. If the baby's like screaming and everything.
No, just adorable.
Like if I'm trying to eat my pizza and it's screaming, I'll kill it. I have no problem with that.
Abba.
No kid's ever going to call me Abba. No.
So, I mean, God's pretty hardcore here, telling the Israelites basically to commit genocide.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't like lovey-dovey.
No. People who say
this is hard ass.
Yeah.
Does it bother you?
No.
Huh. Is there anything in the Torah that bothers you?
Is there anything in the Torah that bothers me?
Mm-hmm. What you think is wrong? Is there any way you think the Torah is wrong?
No.
Really? There's nothing against like child abuse in the Torah, do you think?
Oh, yeah, there is. There's absolutely a thing about child abuse in the Torah.
Really? What?
It says you shall love your fellow Jew as yourself, and that's got to apply for your 1-year-old child as much as your neighbor.
Is there anywhere where you think the Torah is wrong?
No.
So what about when it commands Israel to commit genocide? You don't have a problem with that?
I don't have a problem with anything that God says to do. It's His universe. He created it. He gave us the Torah. He tells us what to do. Who am I to tell him that he's wrong?
Well, Abraham thought God was wrong. I mean, Abraham went and argued with God. So doesn't the word Israel mean struggle with God? So doesn't that, struggle, does that connote argument with?
Well, I mean, there's things that I have struggles with, we talked about this last week. There's certain mitzvahs that I have a really hard time with. Like, for instance, I'm single. I'm supposed to be shomer negiah, right? I'm probably never going to get married, right? So for 50 years, I've been like this, and for the next 50 years, I'm going to be like this, right? So that is a humongous struggle, and I'm not going to win this struggle. I know it, right? It's not going to happen. And because in Judaism, the only way you can have sex is by getting married. And those of us who aren't getting married literally can go fuck themselves. That's literally what you can do.
And you can't even do that. That's forbidden too.
Ah, but wait a second. I got what's called a heter for that.
Okay. Which rabbi gave you a heter on that one?
The same one who told me that I can. Actually, it's all the same. It was all the same conversation we had twice. Actually, he repeated it, different years. That I'm supposed to marry somebody who doesn't want kids, and it's going to eat this is not going to be overnight because we're talking about the Jews who all are compelled to have kids. So they all feel compelled to have kids. So you're going to have a really hard time finding somebody. And in the meantime, the Rav, who's like this great sage of our time, said, basically, go fuck yourself. So when the Rav tells me to go fuck myself, who might argue?
Who are you to argue with that?
Right. I mean, you just go. That's what you do. It's a mitzvah.
How do you feel? Is it a commandment or at least a teaching? Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha.
That's a tough one.
Serve God with joy.
See, you're right. There are things that I personally struggle with, but doesn't mean that they're wrong. I don't say that God's wrong on that. I just say it's very hard for me to do. There's things in Judaism I have a really hard time with. I think that Judaism is extremely alienating for singles. Not for somebody who's single for 3 weeks. That if you're like a lifelong single, Judaism's not going to work for you. We talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's not to say that God's wrong or the Torah is wrong or Judaism's wrong. It's just the way it's assembled and the way the community treats it. You're done. If you're single, you're going to be alienated from this religion. If you're single, you're never going to